So let's have a look at the Zoom integration in Brightspace. We find the Zoom tool underneath the communication nested menu, and it's available to both students and staff from here. You can't find a link to the online meeting Zoom tool anywhere else. You've got to go through the communication menu, and when we open the LTI, so it stands for Learning Technology Interoperability, sometimes shortened just to integration. So it connects Zoom with Brightspace. So an integration between the two tools. And what it's doing is accessing my account in Zoom through a window within the subject site. So any settings or preferences or defaults, etc. that I have existing already inside my staff Zoom account are pulled through and will apply to any meetings I create inside this space. And what we can see here looking at this dashboard when we first come in to the online meeting Zoom tool is a consolidated view of any meetings that we may have created for students to access, our ability to create new meetings, and we will go through the process of creating a new Zoom meeting in just a moment. It allows us to see any that are upcoming. Students will see this same list and be able to click on these links to join these meetings. If you are the host or the original creator of the meeting, you'll have the ability to be able to remove those meetings. So I can delete these meetings if I need to. So I'll remove those from the list. And you'll find that after a meeting has passed, we'll be able to click on the previous meetings tab and get details around that meeting. So our initial level of stats or analytics around those meetings, I can see that there were a number held here, shows the host underneath, meeting IDs, etc. Then we can click on this report button and it will show me in here, depending on which meeting it is, how many members or attendees were in there. We can get email addresses, when they joined, when they left. It picks up on all that information, collecting it from Zoom. So it does rely on the people joining your meetings to also have Zoom accounts to get things like email addresses. But otherwise, we're just going to get the name that they've joined the meeting with and when they join, when they leave, etc., how long. So it is an initial, quite superficial level of analytics. You can use these breadcrumbs at the top to go back to previous areas of the interface. And what I'm going to do now is in fact go through the process of creating a new Zoom meeting inside this tool. So let's do that. If I click on schedule a new meeting, it allows me to create a meeting. So I'll just put sample online meeting here. You might think of other topics like weekly online tutorial, etc. But keep in mind that if your Zoom meetings are intended for a specific audience, inside the subject site, the only thing that the title is going to give away really is what you put in there. So what I mean by that is if this is intended specifically for Bathurst distance students, I would start by putting in an intended cohort in the title. We can refine this and restrict it later on, but if you want this to be targeted rather than just to everybody within the subject site, start by identifying that inside the actual title itself. So this one has become quite specific, so let's go with that theme. I've got here weekly online tutorial for Bathurst distance. Okay, don't worry about a description, it's not visible to students. Set our initial date, so if I said this one's going to happen maybe tomorrow, for example, starting on Tuesday the 15th, I'm going to have it happening at 8 o'clock at night, so we'll switch this to 8 p.m. The duration's not particularly important with Zoom. By default it says an hour, but if it goes for longer or goes for less, it doesn't actually matter. Time zone will default to the settings on your device. So for me, I'm in Eastern Standard Time, or whatever that's called now. And this is going to be a recurring meeting because it is my weekly online meeting, as we said in the title. So I'm going to click on recurring meeting. It's going to occur every week. And you'll notice under here on occurs on, it will by default tick the day that you are creating the meeting on rather than the day that you're actually recurring the meeting to happen. So I said that I wanted this to start on a Tuesday, so really I just need to make sure that I want it recurring every Tuesday. And I can see here every week on Tuesday until this date. It's currently based on 7 occurrences there. What I'm going to do is suggest that you actually try and specify an end date rather than use this after a certain number of occurrences. I have seen this to be a little buggy in the past, so I'm just going to specify the end of the teaching session, for example. In this case, maybe I'll say I want this to run until March or February, for example. Let's go end of Feb next year. I want it to go until Tuesday the 25th. That'll do. Don't worry about registration. We don't use that here. By default, CSU Zoom has a waiting room enabled. And what that means is that authenticated users, so people with a Zoom account that have signed in, will pass straight through the waiting room and join the meeting. Otherwise, if they're just clicking on a link to attend the meeting and they haven't signed into a CSU Zoom account, so quite a lot of students or people clicking on links in emails, etc., they'll be in as a guest, and that will mean that the host will have to admit them into the meeting. So if you want to bypass that, you may need to turn off the waiting room, but this is our default security measure here. I have my video turned off by default for myself and audio, so people opt in and turn those on when they're ready. Uses computer audio and phone if they're using via phone. And now we have our meeting options where you need to make a choice between whether or not you want your meeting recorded automatically. So as soon as anyone joins the meeting, the recording will start. Or do you want your participants to be able to join the meeting before you turn up? So if you're going to use automatic recording, make sure you turn off enable join before host, because you need to actually inform people that they're going to be recorded. Otherwise, this would turn on automatically. And keep in mind, we always want our recordings to go to the cloud. So just check that you don't have record to the local computer. If it's in the cloud, it means they're going to be able to access the recordings in this same tool. I am in fact going to not record automatically. I prefer to let them know that I'm going to record and then I'll start when I'm going to record. So let's let them join. I have microphones muted upon entry for participants. So again, it's opt-in to use your audio rather than just it being on. And that will do. Now, if you have other members of your teaching team and you want to make sure that they are co-hosts, there are 2 things to keep in mind. One of them is, as long as they have signed in to their CSU Zoom account, and if you're not sure where to do that, you would be sending them to the Zoom portal for CSU, which is charlessturt.zoom.us, and making sure they've clicked sign in at least once. That will make sure that they're actually in under their CSU Zoom account. Quite a lot of people have private Zoom accounts, and they might still be saved in your cache, etc. in the background. So the way we make sure that they are signed into the Charles Sturt Zoom account is to send them to this address, charlessturt.zoom.us, and click sign in. As long as you do that at least once, we guarantee at that point that it's using your CSU staff account and you won't have any issues joining Zoom meetings. And in the event that you're part of the teaching team, so convener, co-host, what have we got? Convener, coordinator, additional academic, those sorts of roles coming into the subject site will automatically be able to host any Zoom meeting they join through this tool. But if you're a little bit paranoid and you want to make sure that they're able to host, as long as they have a Charles Sturt Zoom account, you could add their address in here under alternative hosts. It'll need their email address. So if I was to add, for example, I know we've got Beck Atchison, we'll add her in here. At that point, as long as she has a Zoom address, we can hit save here. And it has now created that. You can ignore this error message. It's actually not correct. It has been created. And if I go back up to the top, I can use my breadcrumbs to go back to my first screen, my dashboard, that's showing that I now have a series of Zoom meetings that have been created and listed here for students, showing the dates, times, and the links to join those meetings. Now that's been created inside the subject side underneath the online meeting Zoom link. And at the same time as creating those meetings, it has also added them to the subject calendar. So for example, if I go back to my subject homepage and look at the calendar, open this up, and I can see a series of events. Look at these dots showing me that on Tuesdays, ... And if we select one of those, I can see that the events for the 15th of October include my weekly online tutorial for Bathurst Distance. Now it does say that it's Bathurst Distance, but it is not restricted in the subject site at all to that cohort, so it's just a title at this point. If you are interested in restricting your Zoom meeting to a particular cohort, we can take one additional step. If I've opened the event in the calendar here, I'm looking at this event. It is recurring. It provides a link for students to join the meeting, but as I said, it's visible to everybody. The way we restrict it further is to in fact edit this event. So I can hit the drop down, select edit event. And now, as we can with any other calendar event, we have the ability to change who the attendees are. And in the context of the calendar tool in Brightspace, this means who is seeing this in their calendar and therefore also getting reminders about this. So at the moment, it's everybody. But if you have sections or cohorts in your subject site and you want to restrict this meeting to a particular cohort, if we select the drop down, it will automatically pick up on any sections or groups that you've made in your subject site. So if I want this to only be available in the calendars of Bathurst Distance students, I can select Bathurst Distance, and then I can further configure the event if I need to, but I'm happy with the timings and things. I just want this to be only available in the calendars of particular students. So in this case, I've restricted the attendees to Bathurst Distance, hit save. Then it's going to say all of them or just this one. Well, I want all of those events that I created, every meeting until February. So let's update. And it's now done that. It is only available, if I look under the 15th, which was tomorrow, there's the meeting for Bathurst Distance students, which is now only visible in the calendars of Bathurst Distance students. If we go back to our Zoom dashboard, so we go Communication, Online Meeting Zoom. Once this loads, we will see that we have our list of upcoming meetings in the first tab that we've talked about. As the person who created those meetings, I can delete any of them if I need to, and if I selected delete for one, it would ask me, if I wanted to delete all of them or just that one. I can launch these meetings at any time I want, but once the actual date and time has passed, so tomorrow 8 o'clock, the link for this meeting, the details for this meeting will shift across to the previous meetings area, and I will be able to see the meeting detail, including any reports around attendees in this second tab. So what we've looked at there is our initial dashboard inside the Zoom LTI. So the Zoom integration with Brightspace, looking at how we can create new meetings using the schedule a new meeting option and its relationship in Brightspace to other tools like the subject calendar. So I hope that's been useful to you.